As I step into the shadowy labyrinth of Canary Wharf's grand clock tower, the deep rumble of an approaching thunderstorm threatens to swallow my very existence. The air is thick with a somber tension, the only sound the distant hum of London's underground metropolis. Tonight, it feels like some malevolent force seeks its way into our lives. It was in the year 1985 that this tale unfolds, a mere 8 years after the tower first stood tall and defiantly lit under the watchful eyes of the city. The date had been chosen for a grand event, yet now, as I look around, no one stands here but me. No torches flicker in my direction, no eager hands wave with excitement. The clock itself, an impressive architectural feat, seems to loom larger than life tonight, its face etched with the last digits of the century's final hour. And then, without warning, I see it. The sign, lit not by any power source or electricity from above, glows with an eerie, unnatural light. It flickers like a ghostly beacon, illuminating parts of the clock that should remain in darkness. That first moment, watching the sign shimmer and shift through various colors, was as unsettling as it was inexplicable. There is no reason for this to be happening, nothing suggests such spectral activity in the real world at midnight on a night like tonight. It's not just any ordinary light flickering, it's alive, with a life of its own, guiding itself without any known controller. The sense of dread builds as I approach, my heart pounding erratically in my chest. The sight is both beautiful and frighteningly disturbing. But this was only the beginning. As I step closer, the light seems to pulse more intensely, a strange pattern that dances across the dark stone of the clock face. My flashlight beam flickers erratically in and out, its beams intersecting with the spectral glow. The air grows colder, almost like a palpable presence hovering around me. I've heard whispers from others about this phenomenon over the years, but I'm skeptical until now. Stories claim that people have seen shadows moving within the tower during these occurrences. Yet tonight, there's no movement, no hint of anything otherworldly. The light continues to defy explanation, flickering without apparent cause. Investigators first noticed unusual activity in the 1980s, when residents reported seeing the sign glow with strange colors and even heard disembodied voices speaking through it. They recorded videos during peak times but never found any evidence, no sound, no movement beyond the static of their own equipment or the hum of London's underground system. The most disturbing discovery was in 1994. A group of security guards who worked the late shift claimed to have seen a figure inside the clock chamber, moving about as if it were real. When they approached to investigate, the light suddenly winked out and then reappeared again, this time directly facing them. They swore they heard voices whispering, "Come closer," but there was no one else around. These accounts made sense in some ways, maybe a malfunctioning component or old wiring causing erratic lights, but something about it didn't fit. The location of the clock tower itself, built at the junction of London's financial and dock districts, has long been linked to underground water tunnels that connect various parts of the city. Could there be hidden chambers beneath the surface? Or was there a history here that might have influenced this strange phenomenon? Investigators dug deeper, exploring every nook and cranny they could find. They checked old records, spoke with locals who had lived in Canary Wharf for decades, and even consulted urban legends from nearby areas like Docklands. But all findings seemed to circle around the initial mystery, the lights. As night wore on, one question lingered: why was this light specifically targeting the Canary Wharf clock? It wasn't just any building, it represented power and prestige in London's financial sector. Was there a deeper symbolism at play here? The theories ranged from sinister intentions by disgruntled individuals to ancient occult practices conducted under the watchful eyes of the clock itself. The more they dug, the more complex the puzzle became, but one thing was clear: whatever lay beneath this seemingly ordinary structure had its own agenda. What investigators discovered next would shake even the most skeptical minds. Documents hidden in forgotten files suggested that some sort of ritualistic activity had occurred within these very walls long ago. A group of scholars posited that Canary Wharf might have been chosen as a site for such an event due to its alignment with celestial patterns and other symbolic locations. This revelation was chilling. It brought a sense of foreboding, suggesting that the clock tower was somehow tied into ancient magical or supernatural practices. Could it be that this light is a direct manifestation of whatever ritual took place here centuries ago? The mysteries around Canary Wharf's clock tower continue to intrigue and frighten us still. What remains hidden beneath its surface could very well hold answers to an even darker mystery yet to unfold. As the investigation deepened, a new piece of disturbing evidence surfaced, a series of handwritten notes tucked away in an old archive. The handwriting was unfamiliar and had a distinctly otherworldly quality to it. It seemed almost as if someone else were looking over their shoulder, dictating the thoughts into a notebook. The notes detailed strange rituals conducted within the very walls of Canary Wharf's clock tower. They described arcane symbols etched on the stone beneath the surface, along with incantations in languages long forgotten or perhaps never known to humans at all. The instructions were precise and chillingly specific, detailing how to perform these rituals to summon whatever it was that made this light dance through the air. Investigators found more unsettling evidence hidden within the old tower's walls. They stumbled upon a chamber seemingly untouched by time, barely visible except for faint scratches on the stone. Inside, they discovered remnants of an ancient oil lamp and what appeared to be ritualistic ashes, ashes of human or animal, each piece stained with a dark, almost supernatural color. As they explored deeper into these chambers, the walls grew colder, and the air grew thicker. The investigators felt their breath catch in their throats as they realized this wasn't just some old ghost story, they were standing on ground where something far more sinister had occurred. The most disturbing piece of evidence lay in a small, seemingly ordinary metal box found beneath one of the clock faces. As they opened it, an array of dark, glowing runes materialized within seconds, their presence almost palpable against their skin. The contents inside were bizarre beyond comprehension, tiny bones, twisted metal artifacts from centuries past, and even traces of strange, otherworldly fluids that seemed to have been corroded by some unknown force. These discoveries brought the investigation into a realm darker than any they had imagined. They realized this wasn't just about old rituals or forgotten lore, they were dealing with something far more ancient, far more malevolent. The very structure they stood in was being used as a conduit for whatever dark forces sought to manifest through its light. And then they found something that no one was prepared for. Hidden within the archives of Canary Wharf's history was a document describing an event centuries ago when this exact location was consecrated as a portal, designed specifically for the entry and exit of these malevolent entities. The investigation revealed that Canary Wharf had been chosen by some ancient cult or order, their very structure having been crafted to support such dark workings. The atmosphere grew thick with dread and tension. The investigators knew now that they were not just uncovering a mystery, they were walking into a nightmare that had existed for generations before them. They began to feel the full weight of these ancient powers bearing down upon them, each step bringing closer the realization that Canary Wharf's clock tower might be more than mere symbolism or tradition, it could very well serve as an active portal to realms beyond our understanding. And then they found something that no one was prepared for. The official explanation offered by Canary Wharf management dismissed all findings of dark rituals and ancient symbols as simple decorative elements or artistic flair that had been repurposed through the decades. They argued that the clock tower's original purpose remained intact, merely a piece of historical art with no connection to supernatural forces or forbidden practices. Yet, this explanation failed to address the overwhelming amount of evidence they presented. The investigators found detailed records in the archives detailing an extensive renovation project within the very structure where these rituals were supposedly conducted. Renovation plans from decades prior explicitly mentioned areas for ritualistic purposes and even provided blueprints showing how these facilities were integrated into the clock tower's design. Moreover, the documents revealed that Canary Wharf had originally been established by a secretive group dedicated to conducting esoteric research. The corporation's early records painted an increasingly sinister picture, references to occult symbols, ancient texts, and clandestine meetings held in the very corridors where investigators now treaded. As they delved deeper into these revelations, it became clear that this wasn't just some historical fluff, it was a concerted effort to harness dark powers through Canary Wharf. The official explanation seemed more like a desperate attempt to obscure the true nature of their establishment from public scrutiny and legal ramifications rather than an honest admission of wrongdoing. But the investigation uncovered another layer, one hinted at by whispers among the ranks of the organization's old employees. They spoke of underground chambers where rituals were actually conducted, chambers that no one knew existed until now. These rooms contained artifacts too grotesque to describe without invoking moral panic and were described as places where unorthodox experiments on human subjects took place. The official explanation was a facade, designed to protect Canary Wharf from the true nature of its legacy. Yet, their attempts to dismiss these findings only fueled suspicion among those who knew better, the knowledge that this dark heart had lain dormant beneath the surface for centuries, waiting to be uncovered once again by unsuspecting hands. But the truth, as it turned out, was far worse than any theory. The horror intensifies as investigators delve deeper into the depths of Canary Wharf, their every step echoing through corridors that once echoed whispers of forbidden rites and hidden rituals. Each corner they explored held evidence, ancient symbols etched into walls, shadows cast from unknown corners, and rooms sealed off with heavy iron doors that resisted even the most powerful locks. Investigators found a small chamber at the heart of it all, a space where the most disturbing experiments were conducted. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the soft rustling of old papers lying untouched for decades. Inside this chamber, investigators uncovered evidence that would shatter their understanding of what happened here. They found not just human remains but entire families, all bound and held captive in the shadows. Bones intermixed with organs, documents detailing experiments on reproduction, sexuality, and even mind control. The horrors committed within these walls were beyond comprehension. Investigators discovered files labeled "The Final Experiment," detailing plans for a new breed of human beings. In one room, investigators found what could only be described as the centerpiece, the most disturbing detail of all, a grotesquely altered child's doll. This doll was no mere toy, it had been surgically modified to look like a human female. The doll's eyes were hollow, its mouth twisted into an unsettling grin. Investigators could see where electrodes and surgical tools had been used, wiring the doll, implanting what appeared to be a microchip under the skin. What no one realized until much later was the most chilling part of all, a single room containing multiple dolls, each with varying levels of modifications. The room held evidence of an experiment that combined genetic alterations with psychological manipulation, creating beings that were both monstrous and human, creatures born from the darkest desires and twisted visions of what humanity could be. As they pieced together the fragments of truth, investigators began to realize that everything they had dismissed as mere historical decoration was a facade for something far more sinister. The entire structure, with its intricate symbols and dark rituals, had been nothing but a charade, camouflaging an experiment gone wrong, an endeavor to create beings beyond human nature. The horror intensified not just from the revelations of what had happened here but also from understanding how little they knew about these events. Investigators now realized that the truth was far more terrifying than any theory, far darker, and perhaps even beyond their comprehension. The shadows under Canary Wharf were deeper, the darkness within its walls an abyss of evil. What no one realized until much later was the most chilling part of all. As they leave the chamber, the team knows they've seen enough for now, enough to understand the depths of human depravity and the dark corners where it can hide. But there's one room, locked deep within the labyrinth of corridors, that they haven't entered yet. It's marked as a final sanctuary of darkness. The door is sealed tight with ancient seals, symbols that seem to mock their intrusion. Each step feels heavier as they stand before it, wondering if it's worth the risk. What no one realizes until much later is how far this darkness extends, how every room, every corner, seems to hold a piece of an unimaginable horror. As they reach for the door handle, something inside them shifts. A voice whispers from within the walls, faint but insistent, "Come closer, you will know." Before any can react, the chamber fills with a blinding light that engulfs them in an instant, a light so intense it burns their eyes and skin. They scream, desperate to escape, only to find themselves unable to move, trapped inside a vortex of firelight. As they struggle, they realize they're not alone, they're surrounded by countless versions of what was before them, their own distorted reflections. The realization dawns that this is the true horror, each reflection represents one of many experiments, each a twisted version of humanity pushed beyond its limits. They scream as their bodies are consumed in flames, and yet, no screams pierce the silence. The room burns down to nothing but ash and echoes of suffering. What no one realizes until much later is the most chilling part of all: no remains were found where they had last seen their own reflection. Only ash and a single lock on the door that has been untouched by any hand or force for centuries. Investigators return, shocked and numb from what they've learned, and yet, there's this lingering question: who was truly responsible? The darkness within Canary Wharf had many hands, but the true orchestrator of these horrors remains unknown. What no one knows is if some part of them survived, part of humanity that could never be found or recognized. And as dawn breaks over Canary Wharf for the first time in centuries, leaving behind an eerie silence and ash, a single question echoes: how did they find this place?